My name is Rachel Moreno, and for the past 15 years, I've made a living uncovering the things people try hardest to hide. Numbers. Lies. Bank trails, truth always leaves a pattern. Tonight. That pattern led straight to my sister's engagement dinner, the one she warned me not to ruin. She leaned close as we were seated and whispered through her perfect smile. Don't embarrass me. Rachel. Daniel's father used to be a federal judge. 2. I kept my tone even as I adjusted my napkin. Relax. Vanessa. I know how to behave. She laughed under her breath. You work for the government. They won't understand that kind of life. I smiled slightly and said, You'd be surprised what people understand when they're paying attention. 80 no. The restaurant glowed with soft gold light, crystal glasses, and the sound of money pretending to be grace. Daniel Hale was courteous in a rehearsed way, and his parents arrived with the quiet authority of people who expected the world to stand still for them. Vanessa's voice went bright and brittle. This is my sister. Rachel. She works in finance. Government something. I reached for my water, already sensing the inevitable crack in her perfect performance. Then Judge Richard Hale turned to me. Agent Moreno, he said. His voice level but unmistakably familiar. Good to finally meet again. Vanessa froze. The smile fell from her face as her wine glass slipped, hitting the marble with a sharp, ringing break. The table went silent. I looked at him calmly and said, Good to see you again. Your Honor. For a moment, no one breathed, and even the music seemed to fade. Daniel's eyes darted between us. You know my father? He asked. I folded my napkin, my pulse steady. Not personally, I said. Professionally. His courtroom. Outside the restaurant. Vanessa grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. You let me walk into that dinner blind, she hissed. I met her eyes and said evenly, You never asked what I actually do. She shook her head, the practiced calm gone from her voice. You could have told me you knew his father. You could have warned me. I kept my tone flat. You told me not to embarrass you. I followed instructions. Her phone was already in her hand, typing furiously. You made me look stupid. Rachel. Everyone saw it. I said nothing. Just watched her spin the story she'd tell later. Do you have any idea how small you made me feel? She demanded. I replied quietly. For once. Yes. She stared at me as if hearing something she couldn't process. That night, the calls started. My mother's voice came through. Soft but edged. Your sister is upset. Why did you have to say anything at dinner? I closed my laptop and said, I didn't say anything she didn't ask for. She sighed the way she always did when choosing sides. Please. Rachel. This engagement means everything to her. Don't make her look bad. I smiled to myself. I don't have to. She's doing fine on her own. By morning, the family group chat was full of apologies written for the wrong person. My father's text was short. You could have handled that privately. I typed back. You raised us to value the truth. I told it. His reply came fast. You've always been difficult. I let the phone rest face down on the table, watching the screen go dark like a door closing. In my line of work, motives are everything. People steal, lie, or fight for control. Not for survival, but validation. That night wasn't about status or reputation. It was about power, the kind that's invisible until it's taken away. Vanessa had spent her life performing for an audience that never existed, and I had finally refused to be her stagehand. 2 days later, Richard Hale called my office directly. His voice carried the same measured authority I remembered from every courtroom he'd ever commanded. Agent Moreno, he said. So you're the one who led the Orion Bank fraud investigation. I leaned back in my chair, eyes on the closed blinds. And you're the judge who signed the warrants. I answered. He paused, almost smiling through the line. That case made headlines. No one expected the whistleblower to be a sitting senator. I replied. That's usually how corruption works. It hides behind respectability. 12. He asked if I was free for lunch. Said there was something he wanted to discuss off record. I told him. Lunch isn't necessary. Judge, I already know what this is about. He hesitated. Does your family know who you are? Rachel? I said quietly. They know what they need to know. He exhaled. The silence on the other end, heavier than any reprimand. That must be exhausting. I looked at the file open on my desk. Evidence glowing in digital blue. It's easier than explaining a world they'd never understand. 2% it. Back at my desk. My team moved around me, unaware that my sister's life and mine had collided in ways none of them could imagine. Hale's words still echoed, "You hide behind professionalism." But that's just armor. I had wanted to tell him he was wrong. But the truth sat too comfortably in my chest. When I'm investigating, facts are everything. When it's family, facts become weapons. I had learned to keep mine locked away. Later that evening, a message from Hale arrived. Your integrity doesn't go unnoticed. Some of us still value silence as strength. I stared at the screen for a long moment before closing the laptop. The truth about me wasn't hidden. It was simply unacknowledged. In my family's version of reality, Vanessa was success, and I was invisible. But invisibility, I'd learned, is the best cover for watching everything unravel. The invitation came 2 weeks later. A quiet attempt at damage control. Vanessa called and said, "Dinner with the Hales again. Just family. Let's clear the air." I replied, "You mean rewrite it?" She ignored that. "Please. Rachel, just keep it simple this time." When I arrived, the air already carried the weight of performance. My parents were seated next to Richard and Catherine Hale, and Vanessa's smile looked carved in glass. Vanessa started before the appetizers landed. "I think there was a misunderstanding at our last dinner," she said lightly. "Rachel works in finance, but she tends to exaggerate her cases." Richard set his fork down. "Funny," he said. "The Department of Treasury doesn't usually exaggerate billion-dollar indictments." Vanessa's face tightened. "Oh, Judge Hale, you must be mistaken." I kept my tone even. "He's not mistaken. I investigate corporate fraud. That's my job." "Aided." Catherine turned toward me. Her interest sharpened. "You're with the Treasury Department?" she asked. "For over a decade." I answered. "Mostly organized financial crimes." Vanessa cut in quickly. "She just assists on reports. Nothing high level." Richard's gaze moved between us. "That's not what I've seen. She's one of the most effective investigators I've ever worked with." My mother's hand froze around her glass. "You worked together?" I said softly. "Indirectly. Same case. Different roles." Is nodding. Vanessa laughed too loudly. "This is ridiculous. You're making it sound like you're some federal agent." I met her eyes. "I am." The silence that followed felt surgical. My father tried to steady the moment. "Let's not overcomplicate things. Vanessa's done well in public relations. And Rachel does her part for the government." Richard's voice dropped. Polite but sharp. Public relations doesn't usually intersect with federal law enforcement. "I think we're talking about different leagues." Vanessa's tone cracked. "You always do this. Turn everything into a competition." I replied. "I didn't bring the scoreboard." She slammed her napkin down. "You humiliated me once. I won't let you do it again." I said quietly. "You did that yourself." Catherine leaned back, eyes narrowing. You really didn't know? She asked Vanessa. Vanessa didn't answer. My parents looked at me. A mix of confusion and disbelief. My mother whispered, "You never told us." I said, "You never asked." I'm stilled. The rest of the dinner unfolded in slow motion. Each silence louder than the next. Richard finally spoke. "You should be proud. Mr. and Mrs. Moreno. Your daughter's work has integrity written all over it." Vanessa stood abruptly, her voice trembling. "Integrity doesn't keep you warm at night." I looked at her and said, "Neither does pretending." The night ended not with dessert but with distance, the kind that can't be repaired by apology or wine. The article appeared on a Monday morning. Headline, "Slick and Deliberate." Federal agent accused of misconduct in Treasury case. The photo was cropped just right, me leaving a courthouse. No smile. New context. I read the first line twice before calling Vanessa. "You didn't waste any time." I said. She didn't deny it. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone." "Rachel, I just evened the score," I replied. "You've started a war you don't understand." 12. Her tone sharpened. "You think you're untouchable because you hide behind government walls." I said calmly. "I think you should have checked who built those walls." She laughed. Brittle and forced. "It's just a story. People will forget." I answered. "Not when it violates federal confidentiality." Her silence stretched long enough for me to know she realized what she'd done. By noon, the Office of Public Affairs was on the line with me. "We traced the leak," they said. "It came from a PR agency registered under your sister's name." I said. "Then file it." They hesitated. "You sure you want to go that far?" I replied. "She published classified information. It's not personal anymore." That night, I sent a single message to Vanessa. "You should hire a lawyer before you hire another stylist." 2 days later, the story flipped. Major outlets ran retractions, calling the source compromised and under investigation. Vanessa's company suspended her indefinitely. She called me past midnight, her voice unsteady. "You destroyed me." I said. "You destroyed yourself." I just pointed to the evidence. She started to cry, the sound distant and strange. "You could have warned me," I said. "I did. You just didn't listen when I told you not to touch what you don't understand." The following week, Daniel ended the engagement. My parents tried to call, but there was nothing left to explain. In my world, accountability isn't revenge, it's procedure. Still, when I closed the file labeled Moreno v. Moreno, I understood how thin that line really is. Justice, I realized, is only clean on paper. In real life, it leaves fingerprints. And sometimes they're your own. Vanessa showed up at my office without an appointment, her voice trembling when she said my name. I told my assistant to let her in. She looked smaller somehow. Makeup gone. Ambition stripped away. "You could have destroyed me completely," she said, standing just inside the doorway. I kept my eyes on her. "I didn't need to. You did it yourself." She swallowed hard. "You wanted revenge," I said. "I wanted peace." Asked. She moved closer. "You think this makes you the better sister?" I shook my head. "No. It makes me the one who stopped lying." Her voice cracked. "I was trying to protect my image," I answered. "You weren't protecting anything. You were performing." She stared at me. Eyes rimmed red. "Do you ever feel guilty?" I said. "Every day. But guilt and truth aren't the same thing." She sank into the chair across from me. "Daniel's gone. My job's gone. Everything's gone." I leaned forward. "Maybe now you can see what's left." She laughed bitterly. You're enjoying this, I said quietly. You think silence means satisfaction. It means I'm tired. She looked down at her hands. I thought you were weak all those years, I said. You mistook patience for weakness. That's your pattern. The clock ticked somewhere behind me. A soft metronome to her unraveling. You could have called me, she whispered. You could have asked, I replied. Her voice broke. You'll never forgive me, I said. Forgiveness isn't the goal. Understanding is. She looked at me one last time. Eyes hollow but honest. Then what do you understand now? I stood, letting the question linger. That I never wanted to win. Vanessa. I just wanted to stop losing. When she left, the silence she used to demand from me finally felt like freedom. The commendation arrived quietly, folded in an envelope stamped with the department's seal. My supervisor said, You kept the line between personal and professional. Not many could, I answered. That line cost more than it should have. He nodded once. Still, you walked it. Later that night, I placed the letter in a drawer I rarely opened. Recognition felt lighter than I expected. Almost weightless after the months of noise. A week later, my mother called. We saw your name in the paper, she said. Your father and I are proud of you. I asked. For me? Or because people finally found out? The silence on her end was soft but telling. Does it matter? She asked. I said. It always has. She started to speak. But I ended the call gently. Some truths didn't need repetition. They just needed distance. When the evening light cut across my apartment, I stood by the window and let it settle on my hands. For the first time, they weren't shaking. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't open. The city outside moved like it always had, unaware of the storms people create inside their families. I thought of Vanessa, of what was broken and what couldn't be repaired. Healing, I realized, wasn't forgiveness. It was acceptance, the quiet decision to stop rewriting the past. I turned off my phone and whispered to the empty room. Peace isn't silence. It's finally being heard. 2. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever had to shrink so someone else could shine, remember your worth was never theirs to measure. The truth might cost you peace for a while, but silence costs you yourself. Subscribe for more stories about strength that speaks quietly but never breaks.